Ancient vampires. History of the undead. Vampires are a mythical creature that have captivated the imaginations of people all over the world for thousands of years. They are typically associated with feeding on blood or some other life-giving force and often take on various forms in different cultures, from shapeshifters to reanimated corpses. This video will look at ancient vampire beliefs from early history. Over time, these ancient vampires evolved into more recognizable figures like Count Dracula in European folklore and similar figures in Asian and African cultures. In modern times, vampires still remain popular characters in literature and film, often taking on an attractive persona while maintaining their original sinister nature. The incredible discovery of a prehistoric Assyrian bowl provides insight into the earliest known representation of a vampire. The scene depicted on the bowl is highly unusual, as it shows a man having sex with a female vampire whose head has been separated from her body. This unique image reflects some of the ancient beliefs and superstitions surrounding vampires that have existed since time immemorial. It also offers an intriguing glimpse into how people viewed vampires in ancient times, which continues to fascinate researchers today. In ancient Greek and Roman mythology, vampires appear as succubi and incubi. Succubi are female demons who feed on the blood of men during sexual encounters in their sleep, while incubi are male counterparts. These mythical creatures were believed to be responsible for nocturnal visitations that cause nightmares or bad dreams for people in their sleep. In some cases, these visits could even lead to physical attacks from these entities. Legends tell of women who had been seduced by an incubus in their sleep and died due to exhaustion afterwards. Sumerian mythology tells us that Ikimu were evil ghosts who preyed on the living. These malicious spirits had the power to suck out the life force of their victims, which would leave them weakened and unable to resist the Ikimu's control. Those under an Ikimu's influence found themselves completely at its mercy, unable to break free from its hold. Fortunately, there were ways in which these entities could be warded off, such as offering sacrifices or using protective talismans and charms. In some cases, it was even possible for powerful shamans or priests to perform exorcisms that would drive away these malevolent beings. In Babylonian mythology, Udiku and Udug were the spirits of those who had recently passed away and had returned from their graves. These vampire-like entities would attack newborn babies as well as pregnant women in order to feed on their life force. In contrast, Sumerian mythology featured female demons that hunted in the dark for prey. One particular demon known as Lilu eventually found its way into Jewish folklore where it was adapted and came to be known as Lilith. This character is often portrayed in stories as a malicious creature with an insatiable hunger for human blood or energy. The legend of Lilith has been passed down for centuries, and her story remains relevant to this day. According to the legend, she was created from clay alongside Adam and given dominion over him as his equal. However, when it came time for her to obey him, Lilith refused adamantly, which led to her leaving the Garden of Eden with Samael, an archangel in Judaic tradition. It is believed that after having left the Garden of Eden with Samael, Lilith acquired magical powers such as shape-shifting into a cat or other creature and using charm or seduction on those around her. This power gave her an air of benevolence and irresistibility that drew people towards her despite their better judgment. Such qualities were added during the Middle Ages, however they have remained part of her mythology throughout history up until today's modern age. Estries were feared by many and tales of their terror spread quickly. They had the ability to take on different forms, such as birds or cats, but they could only fly if they let their hair down first. If an Estrie was summoned with her hair tied up, she would be bound to remain in place until given permission to leave. It was said that if anyone saw an Estrie, they had to eat bread and salt from their attacker's hand in order for them both to survive. This custom is still used today in some Jewish welcoming ceremonies. To ensure that a dead Estrie would not return from the grave, it was believed that either earth should be filled into its mouth or else the body should be burned or decapitated. The Testament of Solomon is a text attributed to King Solomon, and the character Ornias appears in it. Although considered apocryphal and not canonical scripture, this text does date back to the 1st millennium CE. In this story, Ornias is depicted as a vampiric creature who feeds off of the blood taken from a boy's thumb each night while he sleeps. Not only does Ornias take his victim's blood, but it is said that he also steals half of his pay too, further emphasizing how insidious and evil he was perceived to be by those who wrote about him. Overall, these depictions show us how superstitious people were during this period in history with regards to vampires or creatures like them. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the goddess Sekhmet was an important figure in their religion. She had a fierce and destructive nature, and was associated with war, destruction, and chaos. After committing a massacre during one of her battles, she became filled with a desire to keep killing humans. The other gods were worried about her rampage, so they decided to give her alcohol that looked like blood in order to satisfy her cravings for violence. The ancient Greeks also believed in the undead coming back from the dead as revenants or zombies, creatures that are neither alive nor dead but somewhere in between. The earliest known burials of suspected revenants date back to around 4500 to 3900 BCE on the island of Cyprus. It is thought that these burials may have been part of rituals or ceremonies involving ancestor worship or appeasing deities associated with death and rebirth. The legend of the Lamii or Strigo is rooted in Greek mythology. According to the myth, these creatures were once mortal women who had been cursed for their promiscuity and driven mad. These monsters would return from the underworld to seek out innocent children whose blood they would drink in order to sustain themselves. They became known as Lamia, after the first member of their species, a human queen of Libya who was said to be Zeus' lover before her transformation. She was cursed by Zeus' wife Hera. In her madness, she killed her own children and was then transformed into a half-woman, half-serpent monster as punishment. The moral lesson behind this story is clear: those who stray too far from societal norms will ultimately face terrible consequences that can haunt them even beyond death. Empusa, the daughter of the goddess Hecate, was a shapeshifter with one metal leg, made of copper or brass. She would take on various forms in order to deceive her victims and attack them when they were sleeping. She drank their blood and ate their flesh to sustain herself. Soon enough, tales about Empusa spread among young men throughout Greece, leading them to become fearful of going out at night in fear that she may find them. Eventually, the Empusae became a type of specter or ghost that haunted people's dreams while they slept and seduced unsuspecting young men before feeding on them. Even today there are still stories told by many Greeks about this terrifying creature who lurks in the night seeking out men as victims for her own sinister purposes. In Homer's Odyssey, a poem from the 8th century BCE, the undead are unable to be heard by the living and must drink blood to communicate with them. This is because they lack physical form and their voices cannot penetrate through matter. The only way for them to make themselves heard is by drinking enough blood that it gives them an ethereal presence in which their words can travel through space and time. Ultimately, Homer's depiction of the undead illustrates how powerful death truly is. While we may feel like we have control over our lives on Earth, when confronted with forces beyond our understanding such as ghosts or other supernatural entities, we become completely helpless against their will. The Roman striges, or strigae, were believed to be blood-drinking birds that fed on the life force of children. This term was later used to refer to mythical creatures such as vampires or witches. The Romanian vampire strigoi and the Slavic striga are thought to have evolved from these original Roman striges. Over time, the words lamia, empusae, and striges became generalized terms for various supernatural beings including witches, demons, and vampires in many cultures around the world. It is believed that these stories originated in ancient Rome but spread throughout Europe over time with different interpretations depending on culture and geography. The Vatala is a particularly interesting creature in the vampire folklore of India, as it appears to be more closely related to an undead spirit than a living vampire. The Vatala hangs upside down from trees in cremation grounds and cemeteries, and can animate dead bodies by inhabiting them. This description can be found in Vikram and the Vampire by Richard Burton, which tells the story of King Vikram trying to capture a powerful vampire-like entity known as Vedal. While not necessarily considered vampires themselves, many Indian legends feature creatures that display similar characteristics such as being able to fly or shapeshift into animals or other humans. In addition to these stories, one must also look at texts such as the Atharva Veda, written between 1200 to 1000 BCE, for further evidence of this theme within Indian culture. Kali is a powerful and frightening deity, known for her fangs, garland of corpses or skulls, and 4 arms. Her temples are typically located near cremation grounds to signify the power of death that she holds over life. She was famously involved in a battle with the demon Raktavija, where she defeated him by drinking all of his blood before it could be spilt on the battlefield. This event is believed to have been so significant that blood rituals became popular within Kali's cult as an homage to her victory. The cave paintings of ancient Nepal depict a variety of blood-drinking beings, but the most prominent image is that of Yama, the Nepalese lord of death. He is shown holding a human skull filled with blood and standing in a pool of it. It has been speculated that these scenes represent the practice of ritual human sacrifice to appease Yama or some other god in ancient times. This belief is further corroborated by the fact that these paintings are believed to be as old as 3000 BCE, which would make them contemporary with many other civilizations who practiced human sacrifice at this time. The significance and symbolism behind these images remain largely unknown today, but they provide an intriguing glimpse into the spiritual practices and beliefs held by our ancestors long ago. Belief in vampires is as old as recorded history. There are probably many more vampire stories from history that have been missed.